this was 3 hours that if I had my druthers, I might trade it in for what's behind the third curtain. Cue Carol Merrill. So, Kyle Petty, I know we don't like to do this and label good race, bad race. I'll say this was not an interesting race. There no time during this race was there a battle for the lead that took a couple of laps side by side. We even saw that at New Hampshire, a place that we don't normally see it. There was, for a place that used to hold the moniker the action track.
Yeah. There's no action.
There was no action. There was one caution that was not planned.
Yeah, there's no action. And there hadn't been. Let's just throw it all out there. There's not been any action at Richmond for a long time. And this car, for all the accolades that we praise it, for all the good things that it does, has changed the racing on the short tracks, and not for the better. I don't believe. I just think this is a package, and we've seen NASCAR be willing to step out and have different packages for different intermediates, road course, whatever that may be. They just haven't landed on a package for this track yet. So and I agree. All racing for me is a good race. All right. And I always compare it to this. If I go to a baseball game, okay, and there was strategy involved yesterday. You know, if you listened on the radio, if you watched it on TV, that's all they talked about. One-stop strategy, two-stop strategies, all this strategy. It's if I go to a baseball game, I want to see a home run derby. I want to see both teams get up there and knock that baby out in left field, dead center. I don't care. Score me some runs. I don't want to see a pitcher's duel. I want to see a home run derby. Yesterday, we saw a pitcher's duel with bad pitchers, okay? Because which takes it to a different level. You know what I mean? So it was just a blah day all the way around.
Alexis, and I know you follow this discipline, so I'll throw this to you. If I want to watch strategy, I'm watching the race that comes on early on Sunday from Formula One. Oh. And usually that's strategy to see who finishes fifth behind Max Verstappen.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Unfortunately, Formula One is not going to give anybody a home run derby these days. But, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the kind of racing that you would watch if you want to see strategy. You know, the only thing I'll say about what happened yesterday, and I think, I obviously agree 1,000% with both of you. It was certainly not the most compelling racing I've ever seen in my life. The thing that I think saved it a tiny, tiny bit is the fact that we had different players than we normally see, running up front. If it was, Martin Truex Jr. or Denny Hamlin or, Joey Logano or somebody else just running away with it all day long, then it would have been, completely dreadful. But because we had some new people up front giving us new storylines, Chris Buescher winning, I think is a feel-good story. Yeah. That gives us a little bit more. But you're right. As far as the venue itself is concerned, Richmond just hasn't given us a lot. But I think also maybe, and this kind of struck me as you were talking, Kyle, about the new car and what it has given us as far as like intermediate tracks and things like that. It has really changed and upped the game on those type of tracks. Unfortunately, short tracks have suffered. But are we crazy for thinking that we can have great racing on every single type of racetrack?
So here's what I say. I don't think you have to have great racing everywhere, but I think you have to have good racing everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to have, if it's, no matter what sport you play, it's for entertainment. If it has no entertainment value, then it has no value.
Right.
Yesterday's race had no entertainment value. And that's just Kyle's opinion. It had no entertainment value to me at all. Yes, the Chris Buescher angle. Yes, the RFK angle. There were different angles. But now you're asking me to put a frame around something that's really not a pretty picture.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
I get
And now
it.
you want me to talk about the frame, not about the picture. I want to talk about the picture, and it was just not there.
I totally get that 1,000%. But I'm wondering about the yin and yang of things, because it's like trying to get everything to be.
You're not going to have there is no, okay, to your point, there is no magic bullet.
There's no panacea.
No, there is. Right. There's not for a short track. There's not for an intermediate like Charlotte. There's not for a speedway like that. We can talk racetrack design and all that stuff. You can talk car design, but there is not one size fits all that makes it perfect everywhere we go. Some places got to. Remember when road courses suffered? Remember when intermediate tracks were the dredge of the
bane
sport?
of the
Well, I was gonna say.
It was terrible. Forever.
I remember on Twitter, hashtag more short tracks, more
Yeah,
short tracks.
more short
Everybody
tracks.
wanted more short tracks. Everybody wanted more road courses.
Take the banks out of these
Right.
intermediate tracks.
Right.
Make them flat. Let's do that. And now it's the greatest thing since popcorn.
Right.
And
exactly.
we've seen that both at Martinsville, the races haven't been scintillating. Richmond, not so much. New Hampshire, and I'm not saying that because that's a track that we cover, pretty competitive.
Pretty competitive. Very
entertaining.
entertaining.
Very.
But North Wilkesboro, same thing. The All-Star race, everything leading up to it, fantastic. The race itself, no. It was the Kyle Larson show. I'm going to give you 2 quotes. I want your hot reactions to these 2 driver quotes. Alexis, I'll start with you. This comes from Jeb Burton. And I love Jeb Burton, by the way. I seek him out. I talk to him. Love you, Jeb, but you were wrong here, okay? Drivers can make a difference at tracks like this. Tire fall off and throttle control makes a driver's dream. More short tracks and more talent wins.
Yeah,
Your
we want driver nightmares. We do not want driver dreams.
Wow. Jeb must have fell into his dad's VCR tapes and was watching something from the 90s.
Maybe.
Okay?
He had to.
He had to have been, man. That was not yesterday.
No, not at all. But I mean, look, how many times have we said if a driver is in love with what is happening, the fans probably aren't.
Yeah.
We need more of what drivers don't want because that's what creates compelling, entertaining racing for fans to watch.
Great point.
All right, now we go from Jeb Burton to a guy that's slightly more well-known. Dale Earnhardt Jr. tweets this.
Okay.
Richmond may need some resin in the higher lanes. I've seen it help some other tracks. Now, this to me is groundbreaking because most drivers carry signs outside like PETA demonstrators protesting resin.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, is he promoting cruelty to racetracks here?
Yes, yeah. So yes. Yeah, I don't think it needs resin. And if you put the resin up there, you know what? Everybody's going to go up there and nobody's going to go down low. So all you do is move the groove. That's all you're doing. If you don't do a whole track or do something, if the grip's not the same level, every driver is going to gravitate to the grip. It's like ants. They gravitate to the sugar. That's where you go. If you put the sugar up next to the wall, they're just going to line up and they're going to ride around the outside of the wall. So no. And I don't have the answers. I'm going to be real plain here and real honest and say, I don't have the answer to this. All I know is the racetrack that we see today used to have some pretty good races. So you have to, as any detective, peel back the layers of the onion and say, okay, what was a good race and what happened? When was the racing good and what happened? And whatever changes have been made since then you got to try to figure out how to make it work.
Can I point out the fact that out of those 2 quotes, one of them was a driver and one of them was a broadcaster? We're not talking about race car driver Dale Jr. We're talking about broadcaster Dale Jr. And he now has a front row seat to what is needed when you're talking about entertainment value. So, he's throwing things out there, too, to see if they can stick, because I think what he saw yesterday, the product on the racetrack probably didn't do it for him very much either. So, yeah, I don't know. NASCAR, we will say NASCAR is there today and tomorrow, I believe, testing some things.
6 cars trying to improve the short track package with aero.
So
and as I said earlier, at least they're trying.
Yeah,
and they've been willing to try with this car. And they do see it. Everybody sees it and the fans see it. And you've got to come up with something.
Jeb doesn't see it.
Yeah, no. I'm telling you, he was watching an old race. He had to be watching an old. But I think when you look at it, is at least I do applaud that they are willing to take this car 2 years into the process and continue to make changes. The trick is, and the issue is, that all the major changes you can make to this car are aero. And we know aero is important on short tracks, but it becomes less important the slower speeds that you run. So how do you make a major change at a slower speed? And that's the issue. That's where their hands are tied.
So NASCAR trying their best to diffuse this hand grenade before it blows up.
See, I like the way he used the word diffuse because that's an aero term.
That's an aero. There you go.
That's an aero term.
Thank you. I appreciate that.